looked at a photo and thought to yourself, dang, that looks so good? Well, chances are there were just a few masks used to achieve that result. Masks are easily one of the most powerful tools found in Lightroom, and professionals are constantly using them when editing their photos, and so am I. Just recently, Adobe released a new version of Lightroom 14.3 where they added a new feature called Landscape AI, which is a really great tool when it comes to masking. We're gonna talk about that later on in the video, but first we're gonna start with the basics, and then we're gonna go to more advanced ways of using masks to edit your photos. All right, so I've selected a few photos here from Iceland, and then some photos from Bali, and then my good friend Peter Lindgren looking handsome here. And I thought I'll go through these photos, but first let's start with the basics. So when you go to the top right corner and you click this button, that's gonna be your masking button. And here you can see there's subject, sky, background. So this is AI tools to automatically choose the subject or the sky or the background. And now in 14.3 Lightroom Classic, we have this new one called Landscape. You have objects, you can just brush it in, linear, radial, gradient, and then range. We're gonna start off with a linear and radial just because those are the most easy kind of masks to use. And then we're gonna go from there with more advanced masking. But to start off this image first, I'm just gonna fix the white balance. I think this needs to be a little bit warmer. Let's see if it should be a little bit more green. Let's add some contrast. Even though it actually was this green and just like bright and saturated in Iceland, I don't really like that kind of green. So let's go to the HSL and start playing with that a little bit. Let's bring the greens down to more of a yellow, and then we're gonna desaturate them, giving that kind of olive green. Let's do again with the yellow as well. No, let's make it more to green, and then we'll bring down the yellow as well. Maybe that's a little bit too desaturated. Let's go before and after. It's still looking a little bit too purple for me, so or magenta, so I'm gonna go bring that down. Let's make this even more warm. Let's bring a little bit of a curve in here. Okay. Let's see, how does that look? Let's lift the shadows a little bit and bring down the highlights just a tad. And still feel like this is too cold for my liking. I like warm images, so it's just who I am. But again, now it's looking a little bit too saturated again. Let's bring down these. Should we just play around with these a little bit? I do a lot of back and forth just with the sliders, but already this is looking a lot nicer. And this is how I would use then the mask. So for example, in this shot, I want this waterfall right here to be the centerpiece. So I'm gonna do a radial gradient on the waterfall. I'm gonna first bring up the exposure a little bit, maybe some contrast. And then I'm gonna use the clarity to make it pop out a little bit more. Let's just bring in the mask a little bit so it's not affecting as much. This is what it's affecting right now. I want it to affect that area. So even right now, before and after, just making the waterfall pop out a little bit. Then another thing that you can do that's cool with radial filters is I'm gonna put another radial filter here. And now instead of affecting the mask, I'm gonna actually press invert here. And now it's gonna affect everything outside of the mask. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring the focus to the waterfall by bringing the exposure down on everything around. And then we can even this out a little bit by just making the whole image more. And then from here, when I look at this image, when I close my eyes and open it up, this down here is an area that I go look at, even though I don't want people to go look at this. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna clean up some of the clutter. I'm often doing this in my photos, just cleaning up the clutter, just brushing it out. This isn't too serious or like accurate because what I'm gonna do next, you'll explain why, but I'm just gonna get rid of some of this kind of distraction here. That's not what we want. You wanna stay in the same focal length just so that it's in the same focus. Now we're gonna choose the linear gradient, and I'm gonna bring a gradient down here. And the way that linear gradients work is As you can see, the farther you pull it out, the more it's going to affect, and it's going to gradually fade out the impact it's making. So I want to impact the bottom half of this image. I want to make it a little bit darker because I don't want the eye to go right there. And then as well, I don't want there to be as much kind of pop and texture to it. So I'm going to bring the clarity down a little bit. And then what you can see here is before your eyes kind of looked down to the bottom of the image, and now it's just faded away. So before and after, kind of flat, a little bit cold. You don't really have your focus on any one area, but right away, much more, focus goes right here. I'm a little bit bothered by this bright lights on the side here. So then what I could even do is just go with a normal brush and just choose darken and then just brush in this area. Because I feel like it's kind of taking away from the actual water itself. Even right here. Obviously, this is a quick edit with you guys, so I probably would fine-tune the colors even more, but you can see a pretty dramatic difference, a nice pop to the waterfall, much nicer greens in my opinion. But yeah, this image is done here using radial and gradient filters. All right, now we're gonna go to the next image and we're gonna do masking with a subject. So obviously I shot this photo very underexposed because I wanted to preserve some details in the sky and the highlights here, even though the sky wasn't that exciting that day. But we're gonna bring the exposure up just to get back some detail. And this is too cold for my likings, and then a little bit too magenta-y. Now, of course, the background looks super green. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna play with the HSL a little bit. And then we're gonna bring down the saturation again like that. Now I feel like it's a lot more uniform look. Then let's add some exposure. But the background is looking a bit too dark, so we're gonna increase the exposure on the background and the contrast like that. But then Gunner here is looking a little bit too bright. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to mask, and then we're gonna choose person. So what's cool about Lightroom Classic is that it automatically detects a person in there. So I can click on Gunner, and then you can choose different parts of his body, which we'll maybe come back to later if we really need to finesse the skin tones. But right now we just wanna affect the whole person. So we're gonna make one big mask for Gunner. And now I have the opportunity to just change the exposure just for him. So, I wanted him to be more matched with the background, but I wanted to preserve the background a little bit. I think that looks cool. But then, as you can tell, Gunner's skin is a little bit too red purple. So what we can do is here, again, we could go to masks, create masks, people, person. Oh yeah. And now we can go body skin. So facial skin, body skin, eyebrows. He's got so much. There we go. Now we're pretty much taking everything. It's missing a little bit here, so we're going to just add with the brush a little bit here. But in general, now we've got his whole face and his hands. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to play with hue of his skin tones. I got to zoom in because you don't want to mess this up. Let's play with the hue now. Oh, Gunner went purple. Too green, too green. Let's see, how does this look? This is like really fine tuning. You don't want to go in the Oompa Loompa, but you don't want as well like red. Let's see if I can play as well with the white balance here and see how does that look. Look at this image now, before and after. Now, one thing that bothers me a little bit is the sky is super white. We can see if there's a nice detail in there. So what I can do is I can create another mask and choose select sky. And now it's done a pretty good job It's pretty like straight refined here. So what we can do is let's try to add a little bit of just feathering on the edge just so it's not so kind of exact, because you don't want to look fake. Let's see what's in this sky. Okay, there's that much if we did. That's pretty crazy, I feel like. Let's see what we can do. That's pretty cool if you add some more. Let's see if we add some clarity in here too. It's looking a little bit fake on the edge here, so we'll have to fix that a little bit, but let's see. We're going to go here now and just do some subtraction. Look at this before and after. Crazy how much detail, and the best part is this is an A7S III, 12 megapixels, and still we're able to get this much detail out of the image. There's a little bit of blown out spots here, so I would maybe even just go like this and just use a healing mask and just bring some more detail into the sky just from other parts of the image. No one's gonna know, so. But yeah, look at that image before and look at this image now. I think that looks pretty good. And for this image, I have 3 masks, one for the sky, one for his facial skin, and one for him, and then I was able to balance with the background. Now for the third and final image, we're gonna use the brand new Lightroom Classic feature that's been added, which is the landscape AI masking. So we're gonna do this photo of Gunnar with this really harsh backlight, very moody shot. We wanna have full control of this photo. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go mask, and then we're gonna click landscape. And Lightroom is gonna detect in the photo different kinds of features, and here it's detecting a sky and then the mountains, which is great. Now we have full control of the background and the foreground. And as well, I'm gonna add into this photo one mask for Gunnar, and it's found him as the subject. So how we're gonna edit this? First, I'm gonna work on the sky. And for me, it's a little bit too towards the magenta side, so we're gonna go more tint. We're gonna add some green in there. I like that already, looking much better. We're gonna bring back some of the sky, but then increase some of the exposure and bring down the highlights again. There's a little bit of playing around, but this was before, now this is after. I like that much better. Now we're going to the mountains. It's very underexposed, so we're gonna go higher on the exposure. As well, this is looking very on the magenta side, so we're gonna go more towards greens. That's already looking good. But then obviously when I look closely at Gunnar, he's pretty dark and just as well kind of cold and on the magenta side. So we're gonna bring the exposure up. We're gonna bring down the green, more on the green side, and then some warmth and maybe even some contrast. Let's see how that looks. So that's Gunnar before, after, sky, now, and then the background. I'm gonna add one more mask just here on the bottom right corner because I want to kind of gradually get brighter. I don't want the audience to be staring down here. I want to go towards Gunnar. And then bring down the clarity a little bit on that. But like just in a few seconds, 3-4 masks, I was able to completely edit the whole image and just have full control. And these new features in Lightroom are crazy because back in the day, you'd have to jump into Photoshop and do a whole lot more work, whereas now I can do all my editing in Lightroom and I'm using a lot of masks to shape the light and shape the colors of my image. So if masks are foreign to you, I'd highly recommend trying them out, start practicing, because once you get comfortable with it, you can do a lot of crazy things with your images. Thanks again for watching this Lightroom tutorial and for this week's episode of Tuesday Tips. If you're new to the channel, make sure you're subscribed so you can stay up to date for future Tuesday tips coming out and other videos I'm gonna be putting out on my channel.